सुदुषदुषुरे सुरे सुतराज्यलक्ष्मी धर्मीश्च आर्जवतस जदगाद रन्ना मंडलस्नी सदा तुच्छब भूत्वा दीनगणे शतो करुणया मंडलपति शनि सदा तुच्छब भूत्वा दीनगणेशको करुणया कौपीन कंठास्थितौ गोपी भावरसामृताब्दलहरी गोपी भावरसामृताब्दलहरी कल्लो लमग्नं वन्दे रूप सनातनं रघुजुगौ श्रीजी भगो पालक राधे हे राधे ब्रज देविके च हे नंद सूना कुतः राधे ब्रज देविके च ललिते हे नंद सूना कुतः श्री गोवर्धन पादपतले कालिंदी वने कुतः Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Krishna Gopala Sam Radha Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Dham ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Jamuna Mai ki jai, Guru Dwarka Dham ki jai, Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the all glories to the Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Madhachita. Jai. All glories to great about glories to Srila Prabhupada. Oh, sorry. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. If you wouldn't mind, I think we'll play a couple more minutes of bhajan and then wait for the devotees to show up.
Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Bye.
Hare Krishna, Mother. So, again, you're welcome. I'm going to put the verse on the screen, and then we may start. Okay. All right.
Jai, Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Did you want to say anything, Prabhu? No.
Now, you can start. Thank you.
So we have Srimad Bhagavatam 1:11:39. But first, do Mangala Charana.
This is the last verse. It's beautiful. You end the chapter. You end the chapter today.
I was excited about it.
Thank you.
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Swapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminite Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. So once again, Srimad Bhagavatam 1:11:39. As we said, the last verse of this chapter. Tang me nire bala mudha strenam chanu vratam raha apramana vido bhartur ishwaram matayo yata. Translation. The simple and delicate women truly thought that Lord Sri Krishna, their beloved husband, followed them and was dominated by them. They were unaware of the extent of the glories of their husband, as the atheists are unaware of him as the supreme controller. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Even the transcendental wives of Lord Sri Krishna did not know completely the unfathomable glories of the Lord. This ignorance is not mundane, because there is some action of the internal potency of the Lord in the exchange of feelings between him and his eternal associates. The Lord exchanges transcendental relations in 5 ways: as proprietor, master, friend, son, and lover. And in each of these pastimes, he plays fully by the potency of Yogamaya, the internal potency. He plays exactly like an equal friend with the cowherd boys, or even with friends like Arjuna. He plays exactly like a son in the presence of Yashoda Mata. He plays exactly like a lover in the presence of the cowherd damsels, and he plays exactly like a husband in the presence of the queens of Dwarka. Such devotees of the Lord never think of the Lord as the supreme, but think of him exactly as a common friend, a pet son, or lover, or husband, very much dear to the heart and soul. That is the relation between the Lord and his transcendental devotees who act as his associates in the spiritual sky, where there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets. When the Lord descends, he does so along with his entourage to display a complete picture of the transcendental world, where pure love and devotion for the Lord prevail without any mundane tinge of lording it over the creation of the Lord. Such devotees of the Lord are all liberated souls, perfect representations of the marginal or internal potency in complete negation of the influence of the external potency. The wives of Lord Krishna were made to forget the immeasurable glories of the Lord by the internal potency so that there might not be any flaw of exchange. And they took it for granted that the Lord was a henpecked husband, always following them in lonely places. In other words, even the personal associates of the Lord do not know him perfectly well. So what do the thesis writers or mental speculators know about the transcendental glories of the Lord? The mental speculators present different theses as to his becoming the cause of the creation, the ingredients of the creation, or the material and efficient causes of the creation, etc. But all this is but partial knowledge about the Lord. Factually, they are as ignorant as the common man. The Lord can be known by the mercy of the Lord only, and by no other means. But since the dealings of the Lord with his wives are based on pure transcendental love and devotion, the wives are all on the transcendental plane, without material contamination. Translation once again. The simple and delicate women truly thought that Lord Sri Krishna, their beloved husband, followed them and was dominated by them. They were unaware of the extent of the glories of their husband, as the atheists are unaware of him as the supreme controller. This verse is quite sweet, and it made me think of the overall theme that simplicity at heart is the key. Simplicity of the heart is essential to our spiritual development, which we may decide to call our Krishna consciousness. Somebody else might decide to call it Christ consciousness. I had someone once tell me, they kind of compared it. They said, just how there's this Krishna consciousness spreading, I think there was also like Beatles consciousness, like back in the 60s. I was just kind of thinking, normally I wouldn't compare a musical phenomenon like that to the consciousness of meditating upon the Supreme Person. But what else is it, if not a form of worship? What else is it? And it made me think about how Krishna says, especially in Bhagavad-Gita, that what you meditate on, that's your destination. It's where you go, it's what you get, it determines the next body you'll have, all of the above. So when I was hearing this comparison, at first, my mind wanted to start judging the sacrilege. How could you? And then I kind of realized that, for a lot of people, and even myself, if I didn't have Bhakti Yoga, if I didn't have Srila Prabhupada, if I didn't have Krishna consciousness, there might be every chance that I might be caught up in some sort of like musical consciousness, some celebrity consciousness. But for all of that to work, I feel as though it needs a simplicity at heart. And this gave me a lot of hope, because you have the example once again, and we've spoken about this before, when Bhishma was lying on a bed of arrows and thinking at the very, very, very end of his life, he's been a warrior this entire time, a politician, he's been a stalwart general, and at the very end of his life, he's thinking, I wish I had the simplicity of the cowherd girls. He's spent his life learning all kinds of things, but at the very end, when it matters, And Krishna himself is standing before him. He's thinking, if only I could have the devotion and the heart, the innate simplicity of these uneducated cowherd damsels, young girls. It is that kind of simplicity that lends itself to the intense loving devotion that I feel that Krishna demands, and that he's ultimately hungry for. So for me, this simplicity is key. The simplicity of the wives of Sri Krishna is key. And I keep using that word simplicity because, you see the word mudha. Usually when you hear this word mudha, you think it's usually referred to as foolish. But here the translation is because of simplicity. So there's a simple-minded, simple-heartedness. And so many times, especially in like sophisticated New York, we can undervalue that simplicity. We can undervalue someone who, when you say, you know what, the sky is blue today and the weather is going to be whatever, and that the person says, okay, no problem. And they're so wrapped up in believing what you've said that we tend to undervalue that person. They go and they act on it immediately. They're called gullible. They're often taken advantage of. And why? Why? When it comes to bhakti yoga, I feel like this simplistic nature, this heart of simplicity, is to be celebrated, is to be held up as the very example of the heights of where our spirituality can go. And I like a lot that within the purport, Srila Prabhupada shines a light on the fact that there are so many people writing thesis after document about what God might be, about what spirituality might be, about what the point of all of this is. And they can't even get close. All of the thinking and all of the over-processing and all of the reasoning, all of the negating kind of still lands you at square one. I was reading, and a friend of mine, we were reading a Ramayana. And at the beginning of the Ramayana, it speaks about the Supreme Person. And drawing from the Vedas, it says so many things about the Supreme Person, but continuously focuses on what the Supreme Person is not. He is not contaminated by material conceptions. He is not under the influence of illusory potency. He's not. And I just kept thinking, I'm so thankful for Srimad Bhagavatam, because there are so many Vedas that simply stop there. Not this, not this, not this, not material, not limited, none of those things. But Srimad Bhagavatam now talks about what he is. And that's a little bit more satisfying to my heart. It's like when you go and you try, and if you're trying to do anything with anyone, right? Any kind of group activity, decorating a house, anything. And you ask the people that you're with, do you like this? And they're like, no. And kids will do it to you so much, right? It's like you ask them, what do you want for dinner? And it's not this, not this, not this, not this, not this, not this, not this. And finally, you kind of go crazy and like, but what do you want? What is it? I feel like this is this purport summed up. You have all of these academics, and they're able to somehow fish out what the divine isn't. And finally, like I get to a point where I'm highly frustrated, but what is he? Simply ours. And that simplicity is key. They the wives of Sri Krishna were not thinking about Krishna in the aspect of, let me go serve him because he makes the universe turn. At least they weren't thinking about it in a literal sense, you know? They were probably thinking figuratively, like everybody thinks their person makes the world turn round. So yes, romantically, I'm sure they had the idea that Krishna made their world turn, especially because every single one of them thought, and he's only with me. Almost feel bad for the other ones because he never spends any time with them. It's a wonder that they even realize that they're married to him because he's always here, just stays in my palace. And in the previous verses, you know, they try intently to keep the Lord's attention. And every morning they're kind of upset when the sun rises. You have to leave the cocoon of all the love that you feel that in the most intimate recesses of the palace doors, and then he has to go back out into the world. But for the rest of the time, unless he's on official business, he's just here with me. And that for them was enough. That for them was enough. I want to adopt that mood. I want it to be enough that somehow or other, my Krishna's just with me. Instead of like, well, yeah, I know he's just with me, but if I could have so many other things, that would somehow fix everything and make me happy. And I have questioned myself about this many, many times. There are times when I am throwing a complete tantrum about life, and I will speak to my Krishna, and I will ask the questions, you know, why are you doing this? Why are you making me miserable? Like all I've got, like, you know, it's like all I've got is japa and so and nothing else, and it's just making me miserable. I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. How did I get to this place where associating with the dearest person to my heart is not enough? How did I come to this point where that's not enough to make me happy? More than not enough, not having all the other things, I start telling myself I'm miserable. How did I come to devalue that association? So it makes me want to take away all the academics, throw out all the rest, and just leave the simplicity. Some of our best and brightest Vaishnavas, the people who have gotten the most, have been so simple. Dhruva was 5. He didn't have complex thoughts. He wanted what he wanted. And one of the things that he wanted was that acceptance, companionship. He wanted to feel seen and heard and accepted. Any of you have ever been in contact with a sensitive child? Sometimes the key to fixing whatever issue they have is not to come up with a solution, but kind of just to hear them out, so they feel seen and heard and accepted. This is Dhruva. And not only was he not seen and heard and accepted, he was shunned by the people he looked up to the most. And for him, and for all of us looking at it, his needs were simple. He wanted his father's lap. That's it. The desire morphed into a kingdom, but at heart, just wanted to hang out with his dad. And through a twist of fate, which turns out to be a blessing, but horrible for him. He's told these harsh, harsh things. Can you imagine telling a 5-year-old, look, not only are you unworthy to sit on the throne, but you're unworthy to even sit on the lap of your parent. Here, better you go die and then take another birth and hope that in that next birth you come from me. These are harsh words. Narada Muni, he looks at Dhruva on the path and he says, how incredible is the spirit of a Kshatriya, that they can't even take the slightest word against them. But I don't think this is just Kshatriya nature. This is our nature. If anyone had said something like that to any of us, whether we were 5 or 50, especially with them being a close family member. It's one thing when the trolls on the internet say it, and it still hurts when the trolls on the internet say it. But now imagine, this is someone intimately connected with us. And at 5, children are pretty much, they're trying to discover the world and just make the people around them happy. They're usually trying to discover what's what and make the other people proud. So now you have someone telling this poor 5-year-old boy, you'll never make me proud. There's nothing you'll ever be able to do that will be good enough. Just because of where you came from, where you were born from. Can't help that. But I'm going to hold it against you. So Dhruva was simple at heart. And when his mother tells him, only Krishna can help you, his first reaction is, how do I know he's God? Well, my mother said, okay, where do I find him? The forest. Which one? I'm going to go now. The very name Dhruva means fixed. He was fixed in that simplicity, that determination. He didn't have to question, well, she said this God and somebody else said another God, and maybe I could go and talk to Lord Shiva instead, or maybe I should go seek out Lord Brahma. Like, he already knew. Lord Brahma's my great-grandfather. I need a kingdom bigger than his. If she says I can't rule, then I'll figure out the opposite. I'm going to rule everything. But it's that simplicity which is key. It's that simplicity that we need. So that now when our spiritual teachers tell us the most wonderful things for us, we are not simply picking apart each word, each strand to find the plot holes. We've all been so kind of traumatized by life and many lifetimes of life that it seems as though that is our first reflex. Instead of having the simplicity like Dhruva to believe, our reflex is absolutely not to believe. And why? Because, just as I said when we started out, especially in sophisticated New York, we will undervalue and completely take advantage of somebody with a simplistic heart. And it's not to say that that wasn't happening before. Of course it was. It's a material world side effect. But some of the best and brightest spiritualists, if we think about it, are spiritual teachers of antiquity, spiritual teachers of all faiths. They possess a simplistic heart. Gaur Govinda Maharaj would term it a heart free from duplicity. He would say that that's always most necessary in order to advance in Krishna consciousness. We need to get free from duplicity, which for him was such a simple concept concept. For him, it was just walk the talk. What you say you will do, just do it. What you say you believe in, own it. If you say, I want to worship Krishna, then do it. And, I would say easier said than done had he not actually just done that. It's easier said than done if our hearts are already filled with duplicity. So for us, it takes reconditioning. We need rehabilitation. A lot of rehabilitation. So that we are not constantly just looking for the plot holes, just looking for reasons not to believe that Krishna will help us. Here, no one could convince the wives of Krishna that he wasn't with them all the time. They knew. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've experienced nope, it's the whole thing. And here, in our lives, it's almost as if absolutely no one can convince us that the Lord is actually going to be there for us. We are determined in the opposite direction. We are determined to disbelieve the mercy of our supreme best friend. And so no matter how many times he says, I promise because I'm your very dear friend. I promise I'll take you with me because I'm your very dear friend and you're my friend. I promise I'll be there for you. Just do this little bit and I'll save you because you're my friend. We have serious trust issues. And I remember, I want to say it's about a decade ago now. I feel as though there was a very, very big push to make the teachings of Krishna consciousness more academic. And there was a big push. And I think, it's because it's quite prestigious to have these things in colleges. And so there was quite a big push to make these teachings more academic. And that was kind of where the focus was. And so it was a great honor to have books, with forewords and prefaces and all these things written and reviewed by collegiate scholars and academic scholars. And I was always a little bit confused because I tend to lead with a lot of emotion rather than all the here logic. I kind of work with logic that goes here instead of logic that goes over here. And I like to balance out the two eventually. But especially when it comes to Krishna, I kind of feel like it's really difficult to make him academic. It's kind of just not how he works. Because the minute you think you've pinpointed exactly what he is, he's become inconceivable again. And he decides to show you that he's nothing like what you thought. And he pushes the point of surrender by using those things. So I remember feeling really confused and just thinking, but does it make devotees? Does that way make a lot of devotees? I feel like the way that makes a lot of devotees, and this is just my own personal opinion, how you deal with sensitive children, like Dhruva, like Prahlad. When people feel seen, heard, accepted, and completely welcomed, I feel like that goes a lot farther than academia, knowing the exact distance between God's realm and our realm. for me, that kind of just gives me anxiety. It's like, it's how far? And how am I supposed to get there? I enjoy Krishna consciousness because it is so inconceivable. Because just that very same moment where they could tell me the exact distance between that supreme realm and this one that I'm in right now, and I go, oh my gosh, how far is that? My brain can't even compute that many miles, whatever the distance is. I can't even conceive of it. Then my Lord, my friend, also says, also, you're never that far. It's never farther than just removing a veil. Never farther than just looking across the road. And that helps me a lot more. Because constantly looking at how much further I have to go, it's not great for me and my consistency. But having those moments to cherish those victories, having those moments to have a supreme person who says, but you're almost there. It's actually not as far as you think. This point was brought up yesterday in a lecture, and it is one that I remember. They were saying that devotees were asking Srila Prabhupada, how long does it take for one to become a pure devotee, for one to surrender to Krishna, for one to get to know the supreme person? Srila Prabhupada said it could happen in a moment. One moment. And there are examples. There's a Maharaj Katvanga. He had one moment of surrender, and that's it. And I think he even said something to the effect of, it's simple. See, again, the simplicity is key. And this is how all of Vrindavan operates, on simplicity. And there are so many times where the different villagers, they'll ask Nanda Maharaj, Krishna's father, and Yashoda Mata, Krishna's mother, your boy is interesting. How do you explain all of the things that he's done? And the answer is something to the effect, paraphrased, of, don't try and think about it too much. Don't try and think about it too much. It'll just hurt your head. He is who he is. And there are so many times, there's an entire Bhagavad-Gita, and I've said it before, but because yesterday was Gita Jayanti, it bears mentioning again. One of my most favorite things about the Bhagavad-Gita is that it does not stop at the universal form. Someone got a glimpse of the workings of the entire universe. Academically, he would have been able to explain everything. But that's not where it stops. There's still more conversation. There's still more book. Several chapters, in fact. What's the goal? What is the biggest takeaway? Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I will give you all protection from all kinds of reactions. Do not fear. Simple. Super simple. So all of the things that we chalk up in our mind as being very difficult, I feel like Krishna is constantly like, it's simple. More simple than you think. And we're thinking, but if I surrender, then what will happen to me? How will I be able to maintain my life? It's like, are you really asking this question as though I haven't been maintaining it all along? If we honestly ask ourselves that question, what have we been doing? We have not been maintaining this all on our own. Right? We don't wake up in the morning, and I said this before, we don't wake up in the morning, let me turn my heart on, make sure it's functioning properly. Let me make sure my brain is working. We only get concerned with those things when they're not working. Otherwise, business as usual. It's a well-oiled machine. But who oiled the machine? It was our Krishna. Our Krishna gave us a machine and then said, I'll take care of all the fixings. You won't have to worry about it. You simply focus on what you've got to do. Simple. He took care of all the complex things. So complex that if something breaks down, it takes surgeons hours to fix it. And it's like the smaller the breakdown, the longer it takes to fix. Right? If you have something like a little vein or whatever, it starts to take a long process. They've got to like reconnect things and figure it out, go through years and years of schooling and residencies and hours of procedures to figure out how to fix this small thing that my Krishna had already had working. Had it working. One line that I always love, Srila Prabhupada states in Krishna book many times, and in Srimad Bhagavatam many times, that everyone is enamored by the brilliance of a scientist. So many people are enamored by the brilliance of a great mind. But no one stops to think, who made the brain of the scientist? It's simply enough for us to be amazed at what they come up with. Now I want to be amazed by the creator behind it. I want to be amazed by the artist, which there were devotees and they were looking at a nature sunset with Srila Prabhupada and they said, it is beautiful. Srila Prabhupada said, yes. And if you think this is beautiful, you should see the artist. He was simply residing in a place where he had that vision. It takes that kind of simplistic faith to say, I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm going to get on a steamship and go follow this calling because Krishna said. I can't do it. I'm the first one to say my heart has not been pulverized into submission that much just yet. I still have all my ideas and my scheduled way of how things should work. But not Srila Prabhupada, not Dhruva, not Prahlad Maharaj, not the gopis. Devotion runs on simplicity. It is that simplicity which gains us the constant association of our dearest friend. I do not think it was any coincidence that these women, with their simplicity, right? I don't think it was any coincidence that they were all having the constant association of Sri Krishna. That's the reward. That's the reward of surrender. We are constantly thinking, if I let go of all my preconceived notions, if I let go of it all, what will I have? Krishna's constantly telling us, you'll have me forever, always, me. And I continue to look at that and I go, all right, maybe tomorrow. Maybe I'll try tomorrow. Because today, I need so many other things. I feel like my Krishna's like, but I'm right here. You're just going to ask me for the things again. Like, no. I need other things. But if we can harness that simple nature and remind ourselves of that simple nature, we will have everything and anything that we've ever dreamt of and more. Because we'll have the constant association of Krishna. Krishna's entire family and lineage, everybody was a lot like that. And, it's kind of interesting. We find that we gain these realizations a lot in times of calamity and grief. And we're always kind of like, but why? Why does it have to be in the hard times when we figure it out? Well, my theory is because the hard times strip away all the other things. All the thoughts and all of the ideas and all the theories and hypotheses, all that gets kind of thrown to the wayside when push comes to shove, right? The way they say that there are no atheists on a plane that's going down, right? They have that saying, like, everybody's an atheist until you're staring down at the mouth of death, and then they're trying to find somebody to call on. So that just lets us know that the calamities, those times of grief, those harsh times, all the other things that we thought, they get knocked far, far away. I had a coworker one time, and he always used to say that he was an atheist. Always. And he knew that I was very spiritual. And he was respectful about it, and I was respectful with him, no problem. Cool. And then maybe a couple years into me knowing this person, he got into a car accident, and then something else happened. He was going to get a ticket, and then he was all this stuff, and he had small children, and he thought he was going to go to jail and all whatever. There was a lot. It was involved. And I remember him saying, he said, usually I don't ever ask this. Like, he's the type of person, even if someone like passes away, he's like, my thoughts are with you. But he never includes anything spiritually related. And I remember him asking me if I would pray for him and his family. And I said, absolutely. Why not? Sure. So it's in those times when the calamities come and life is really harsh and you're looking at it plainly and you need some comfort. There's a divine level of comfort that seems to be a natural necessity of every soul. So yeah, it's so uncomfortable to think about. And it really rubs us the wrong way every time we think about the fact that Queen Kunti said, let the calamities come again and again. But she was seeing the reward behind them. The reward is Krishna's constant association. Prahlad Maharaj also saw that same kind of reward. He speaks to Narada Muni in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita and says, what have I done? What have I done really to endear myself to the Lord and to endear the Lord to me? I just called out when I was in some trouble. And the Lord personally came to save me. But then when I wasn't in trouble anymore, I never saw him again. He gave me this kingdom to rule over. I had all this wealth, and then I never saw him again. How can you say I'm fortunate? This is the abundance that great souls speak about. The abundance for great souls is the constant association of their supreme friend. All of what we are hoping and wishing for monetarily means nothing to them. In fact, the Pandavas also say Krishna was saving us. He was visiting us all the time when we had nothing. Now that we have a kingdom and wealth, I'm emperor of the world, Yudhishthira Maharaj says, he's abandoned me. I'd rather go back to when I had nothing. Because when I had nothing, except for that simplicity at heart, I had the constant association of my dearest supreme person. So that simplicity at heart is a gift. And when Krishna is lovingly grinding us, like that's what it feels like, lovingly pulverizing us to get the essence of our hearts out of us, it's actually a blessing. It doesn't feel like a blessing when you're going through it, but it's a blessing. Because what's coming on the other side, what he's trying to get out of us, is that simplicity, which will make him unable to leave us ever. For those who have that simplistic nature at heart, I'm happily conquered. Otherwise, nobody can find me. Nobody knows where I am. Even if they come to my house, they can't find me. You know how many demigods it took to come to the milk ocean? They couldn't even see. They came to the shore of the milk ocean, right? Beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. They come to the shore of the milk ocean. They can't even step foot on the island of Shwetadweep. They can barely see it. What they see is a glow in the distance. Looks nice. In the purports of our acharyas, they tell you they couldn't see anything. They just had to have faith that they were in the right spot, saying the right prayers, doing the right things. And then they didn't even get the message. Message came from Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma gave the message to everybody else. So this is not like something that just, Krishna says and doesn't act upon. He's like, no, nobody can find me. Nobody knows where I am. Nobody can keep a hold on me. Slippery as anything. But for those people with that simplistic nature, for one who sees me everywhere, I'm not lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. And it's just as simple as that. Where can we see Krishna in every single circumstance? The good ones, the bad ones, the in-between. Where can we see Krishna? Does it mean that we become emotionless robots who are unaffected by everything? Now, even though Shri Krishna does say, right, happiness and distress are like the winter and summer seasons. O young descendant of Bharat. But one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. A sober person, they're not bewildered. For them, it's fine. Okay, but what does that mean for us as spiritualists? Because I feel as though this is something that comes up for us a lot. Right? Does it mean that we should be immune to the heat and the cold and we should never feel it? Or we should be immune to the people around us and we don't care if they live or die? What does that care for me? Soul never dies. Soul never comes into being. It's always there. What does that mean? For me, I think it's the opposite. Let's not forget that Krishna says this while Arjuna is having a complete breakdown. To be honest, I think there are some things that Arjuna's not even really able to compute and pay attention to. I know this because he continues to ask questions about it later. So this entire Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna says things, and I think Arjuna is just like, I don't know what you're saying. I'm going to need you to elaborate because I have no idea what you're talking about. I can't even control the wind. I don't, what seasons? What are we saying? Right? So this is our position. We hear this philosophy. We take it into our hearts. Everybody should be totally transcendent and fine now. Who are the most transcendent people that we're trying to follow in the footsteps of? We have the gopis of Vrindavan. We have these simple-hearted wives of Shri Krishna. Were they indifferent to everything going on around them? No. In fact, this entire purport is about how they were heavily working under the directorialship of the Yogamaya potency. Krishna has a specific potency that keeps everyone, keeps even himself from being too callous, too transcendent. Even Krishna as God, he's like, but if I'm gonna do this, if I'm gonna have these relationships, I'm gonna do it right. And if I'm gonna have these close relationships, I can't just be thinking I'm God all the time, and they can't be thinking I'm God all the time. I can't just be transcending, and they can't just be transcending. We have to have like levels and tastes and different moods and flavors. So he appoints someone as a supreme director, and she's very good at her job. So much so that they say that the residents of Vrindavan can do the same thing every day, and none of them will remember, especially Krishna. Rupa Goswami, in his writings, he brings up a certain pastime where the roles are reversed. Usually we see that the gopis are waiting for Krishna, that Krishna takes his sweet time, or that he's already been playing a flute in the forest and the gopis are running to him. They're all trying to figure out, how do we meet Krishna? But Rupa Goswami tells of an instance when Krishna is older and he has finally made good on his promise. He returns to Vrindavan for a visit. And when he returns to Vrindavan for a visit, everyone is so happy to see him. They say that a kirtan, an unending kirtan of Govinda has returned, rolls throughout all of Vrindavan. The breeze is even happy. Now the breeze feels like my life is complete. I get to carry this message and bring life back to all of the Brajbasis. Krishna gets to greet everyone. Cows first. And all of the cows. Right? Doesn't leave anybody out. Cows first. Then his cowherd friends. Then his parents. And all the elders of the village. They have a wonderful time. They bring Krishna back to Mother Jashoda's home and Nanda Maharaj's home. They feed him sumptuously.
Sonam, I will give you.
And Krishna begins thinking, I've greeted everyone except the gopis. How will I be able to somehow or other meet with them? And now he's in a bit of a quandary. He's older. He's gotten married. Has many wives. And now he's the one that has all of these limits of propriety. And so, whereas the gopis before, they would abandon everything. Now, everyone is finding it difficult to, how does this work with our current society? Not only are the gopis thinking about this now, but Krishna is also thinking about it. He's thinking, in my absence, everyone has kind of figured out that these gopis were incredibly in love with me. So now how does this work? So one night goes by, another night goes by, another night goes by, and Krishna still has not gotten to meet the gopis. Finally, Rupa Goswami says that Krishna is now found in his room at his parents' house, sobbing into his pillow. Who should arrive but his own internal potency? Yogamaya arrives. And within Sri Vrindavan Dham, Yogamaya is none other than Purnamasi. So, mystically, she makes her presence known within his room and says, what's the matter? He says, I don't know how this is going to work. I've tried. I can't wrap my mind around it. How will I be able to meet my most beloved? I've been waiting for years just to meet with them. How is this possible? Krishna's tears, right? His own kajal is smeared everywhere. His curly hair is still wet because he's been crying, everything. He's completely falling apart. And Yogamaya can only smile at how different this scene is. Krishna pining for the gopis is something different, but so sweet. She says, don't worry. Don't worry. Everything will happen according to your own desire. Krishna in the throes of this, I don't even know what my desires are. What do you mean everything will happen? What will happen? I assure you, a festival of happiness will occur. Don't worry. Now we see the Lord of the universe wishing, hoping, praying. Now he has to be consoled. So if that's the Lord of the universe, and if that's all of his most wonderful people, what can be said for us? We are going to have emotions. We are going to be affected by the things that happen in life. Krishna's potencies are extremely strong. And not just in the bad way, where we say, Maya is very strong, watch out. Krishna's potencies are strong. In every and any direction. So we are going to be swept up. It shouldn't be that we have relationships with devotees that we cultivate throughout our entire lives, and then at the very end, we don't care about them anymore. They mean nothing because happiness and distress, winter and summer seasons, have transcended it all. We can be as transcendental as we want, but the majority of us will still put on a coat when it's cold out. And we're not going to berate ourselves for that. Right? Like, do we walk around looking at the people with their coats on in the winter like, oh, clearly you're not so advanced? Right? We would like, that's preposterous. Or better yet, this is an analogy that came about maybe a year ago now. Yeah, do we think about when we're sweating in a hot kitchen and we're like, ugh, can't believe this body, so not advanced. No, we understand it's a function of what's happening here. You wipe the sweat away, you keep going. And so that's what Srila Prabhupada's point is when he says, a kitchen might be sweltering in the summer, but a woman will still cook. Right? And so sometimes our guarded hearts get so caught up in the fact that he gave that analogy, and we get swept up by, what are you saying, Srila Prabhupada? Does that mean that a woman's duty is only to cook in the kitchen? No. What he's saying is, you don't berate yourself for having feelings. What he's saying is, it's natural, but you keep going. What he's saying is, just don't give up. And we're like, but he said, women in the kitchen. That's all we can focus on. I was like, but he also said, don't give up. Why don't we focus on that part? Right? So moving back to this belief where my heart can be simple, right? It can be dedicated and simple, but it does it in the wrong direction. My heart is so dedicated and simple in not believing in how wonderful Krishna is and how wonderful Krishna consciousness is. I want to get to a point where I'm simple the other way. Where you can't tell me that my Krishna is not amazing and wonderful and that he's not going to work in my life. He's already working in my life. And when you get challenged, well, how? How can you tell he's working in your life? I'll show you a miracle. Watch. Miracle. Because I don't know how that works. And if it stopped working, I'd be in very big trouble. It's a miracle. And I want to have that overwhelming gratitude that comes with that simplicity. The gratitude that really does believe that was a miracle. I read a prayer, and this prayer said, in essence, it said, "Oh my Lord, thank you for allowing me to exist all day." And I thought, that's absolutely right. It was simple. And it was so profound for me. I kept thinking, you know what? I want to start making that prayer, especially at the end of the day. You know what, Lord? Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to have this existence. Thank you for allowing me to wake up, but thank you for allowing me to have the rest of this day too. And if you decide to give me another day tomorrow, I'll thank you for that too. Because that gratitude is what's going to keep me from becoming bitter. When we have so many hopes and dreams and wishes, and we start to see and feel that everybody else around us is getting the things that we want, when we start feeling as though that grass really is greener on the other side. No, look, I'm seeing it. When you start going through your social media feed and everybody is getting married and buying a house and having a children and a pet, right? They're getting all the things and everybody is starting a new job. The mind takes such advantage. Everybody's getting the things that you want and you're just still stuck here. I want to allow the gratitude of these every single moment miracles to keep me from getting bitter. As I have faith, I continue to exercise faith that what Krishna has set out for me will always, always, always happen. You can't miss blessings. Krishna is so determined, he refuses to let his people miss blessings. Even if you think you missed an opportunity, he's going to try and find another way in. Might take some time, but he's going to find another way in. So I want to let that faith carry me through, and I want to let the gratitude stop me from becoming a bitter person who just begins to think there must not be any God, or that God will be out to hurt me, that God won't accept me, that God won't see me, that God won't understand me, because that God is so far away. How could you possibly? I want to remember these every moment miracles. Because Krishna is not just sending one message. He's going to send 1,000,000. He was ready to continue to talk to Arjuna on that battlefield for as long as it took. It just so happened that it only took something like between 37 and 42 minutes. Right? The entire Bhagavad-Gita, which takes us, people who speed read it, it still takes about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Less than an hour? Like 37 to 42 minutes. It's like one episode of a show with no commercials. And somehow or other, Krishna was able to break down the workings of the universe, karma, knowledge, the identity of the soul, reveal a universal form, take back said universal form, reassure his friend, get him ready to fight. Like, this is the best pep talk / TED talk that has ever been given. And it happened because, one, of course, Arjuna was simple. At a certain point, he said, my brain has thought too much. I can't think anymore. Simply, I'm a soul surrendered unto you. You tell me what to do because I got nothing. Because of their simplicity. This is how we reclaim a word, mudha, which usually is referred to something foolish, someone foolish. We get to reclaim it in the highest regard. That simplicity, that quality of being a mudha, somehow, if we are able to channel it towards Krishna, gets us Krishna's constant association. It gets us everything that we've dreamt for and more. And I'll just end with this. I was reading something recently, and they were talking about all of the prayers to all of the Brijbasis, the Gopis, Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda Mata, and they were talking about how you can worship Radha Krishna by reciting all of these different mantras. And to be honest, my brain was beginning to spin and I was starting to feel a little bit intimidated. And then kind of at the very end, they said, but best of all is the Yugala mantra, right? The mantra of the divine couple, composed of 16 names, 32 syllables. None other than this Maha Mantra. And I thought, thanks, Srila Prabhupada. There are so many times when we take shelter of so much else. But Srila Prabhupada was constantly reminding everybody that it's actually simple. If you put in the proper faith in the holy name, that is all you need. The holy name can be all kavachas. It can be all armors. It can be all medicinal effects. Hari Bhakti Vilas says there is no friend equal to the holy name. There is no medicine equal to the holy name. There is no pious activity which is equal to the holy name. The holy name can do everything if we can remind ourselves to be simple about it. Now, that's not to say that you never read anything else. Of course we do. Of course we're going to read about different kavachas and different prayers, and we should actually employ them. But we should also accompany all of that with the chanting of the holy name, because who knows if we're saying it correctly or not. Right? Srimad Bhagavatam cautionary tale, there were Brahmans. They were chanting mantras. They chanted the mantras incorrectly. They did a long A instead of a short A. And then a demon arose out of the fire and killed them all. So, if that's the effect of just a long A versus a short A, so we can accompany this with the holy name, which, we think, oh, that's simple. Of course it is. Because that's what Krishna prizes above all else, that simplistic nature at heart. I want to get back that simplicity. Sure, let them call me foolish and simple-hearted. For me and my Krishna, that can be the greatest compliment. Lets me know I'm getting closer to the goal. So thank you so much. All glories to those wonderful, simple-hearted acharyas and teachers and spiritualists that we can follow in the footsteps of.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Madhachyuta Gopi. That was a very beautiful class. Many important subject matters were dealt with. I don't think we will have enough time because I had lots of questions because you touched on so many important points. But I'll ask the devotees, whoever has a question, may raise their hand up and then ask their question. Hare Krishna.
Let's see.
Father, you were talking about we have a serious trust issue, which I know myself to be one of such people. I have serious trust issues. And that trust issue, I may be wrong, but I believe it's part of the reason why it's difficult for me to surrender fully. Because to me, I believe all the questions Arjuna was putting forward to Krishna were all right. It wasn't that like Arjuna was bringing up some useless reasonings. But to me, all his reasonings were right. Yet Krishna says, no, that's not what I want you to do. And he surrendered. So I would say, like, surrendering to Krishna means that you have to surrender everything, your so-called intelligence, your so-called knowledge, whatever, which is difficult for me to do at this point. Because surrendering to Krishna means that I have to surrender to somebody who is representing Krishna. And that person representing Krishna, even though it's Krishna, but he's also not Krishna at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's Krishna and not Krishna at the same time, there could be a situation where things might go wrong. And if I surrender fully to this person, then I might get hurt. So in such a situation, what do we do? Because we cannot understand that in order for us to fully experience Krishna, we have to surrender. And Krishna is not here physically talking to me like he talked to Arjuna. Whatever he said to Arjuna is still there. But Arjuna asked questions. I will not be able to ask him questions. Me asking him questions means that I'm asking his representative. But like I'm saying, his representative, because he is Krishna and simultaneously not Krishna, he might have some sort of given wrong or inaccurate responses to my questions. And in such a situation, what do I do?
Yeah. I always think that it's very interesting that we have Bhagavad-Gita as one of the first things that we read because it's in the middle of an entire history, right? And so oftentimes it takes a long time when you're in Krishna consciousness or in spirituality before you read the whole story, before and after. Most times we get Bhagavad-Gita, we read that, we go forth with that knowledge. Now that's it. What happened after that? There are several times on the battlefield where Krishna is actually angry with Arjuna. Why? They're on the battlefield and Krishna says, okay, Bhima's there. Bhishma is there. You have a clear shot. Shoot. And Arjuna says, yeah, in a minute. I said, shoot. You have the clearest shot. You can take him down now. Shoot. In a minute. So Arjuna surrenders and doesn't, just as we all do. We surrender and don't. And so there are at least 2 or 3 times in the course of the battle of Kurukshetra where Krishna gets upset and he says, you promised you would surrender. You said you would fight to the greatest of your abilities. You said you would do all the things and you're not. I'm taking matters into my own hands. He says, I'll destroy the entire armies right now, today, right here, right now. Usually Arjuna then goes, okay, wait, I'm sorry. I know, okay. So there's at least 2 or 3 times Krishna actually gets off the chariot and he's like, I'm done with this. You said you surrender, and now the actual doing is different. So we can't forget to read what happens after, right? It's not just a vacuum, you know? So we should know that that struggle is not unnatural. The struggle is going to happen because we are embodied souls, right? With bodies, dealing with all of these bodies. Our heart's going to say, sure, we surrender. Our mind's going to say, no, we don't. Try again tomorrow. In a minute. And Krishna's going to say, shoot. And we're going to say, in a minute. And sometimes Krishna will say lovingly, because he has a relationship with us, now, you promised. And I said I would handle everything as soon as you promised. And now you're holding back. That's it. So sometimes we wonder, Krishna, why would you put me in this situation? Because we promised, but we're still holding back. So now Krishna is also exerting his personality and forcing the issue. So this also comes up to, you said, but sometimes Arjuna was able to ask Krishna. He was able to see that interaction happening in real time. What do? We can't forget Srila Prabhupada's and Krishna's instructions that not only does Krishna speak through representatives, but also through the heart. We have Chaitya Guru. We have external gurus. Now, this could be a problem if we think only that the external guru can say something. But we also have to understand that the external guru should be having a conversation with our own Paramatma. It should be, the vibrations should meet. This is why Rupa Goswami puts an emphasis on like-minded devotees. He does not just say, anybody who knows about Krishna, go on. It says no association of like-minded devotees. Because the message coming from that devotee, who can be Krishna's representative, and the message coming from our Paramatma, they should have an equal vibration. Otherwise, it will definitely cause us identity issues and spiritual crises. We have to be able to find those like-minded devotees. And we should understand that Guru Tattva is many-branched and also still one. So we should take the opportunity. This is why Krishna says, just try to hear submissively from a spiritual master. But he doesn't just say just anybody. Ask questions. Find that spiritual master. Hear from them. Not to challenge them, but to honestly see, do we vibe together? It's like finding a romantic partner. You don't just pick the first person off the street. Let's go get married. We have to like each other. We have to see if our minds are compatible, if our living arrangements are compatible, if our values, if the way we're brought up, our value systems, do they work with each other? And we don't ever shame anybody for that, right? It's like, well, they were associating and now they're not. They didn't seem so compatible. And we say, oh, okay. It's going to be the same with our spiritual compatibility. We have to do the work to kind of know ourselves. But then we also have to do the work to find out who our teachers are. And Gaur Govinda Maharaj would famously say, Krishna gives you Guru, and then Guru gives you Krishna. They should be working together. And so this is, this is a question that I even asked myself before initiation and before formally accepting my own spiritual master. I was like, well, if this person asked me to upend my life, give up everything I owned and move somewhere, would I be able to follow that instruction? And I had to really sit and like, well, from this person, yes. Sometimes when you're asking that question, it's like, but from that person, maybe no. So maybe you want to find somebody where that answer is yes. And it doesn't mean that I can't say that person is receiving Krishna's message any less. It's just for somebody else. And when we think about it, it's like, but what if we've already chosen somebody? And we've made a spiritual pact with that person. Then what happens if there's every chance of a fall down? Then what happens to my spiritual life? Now I'm hurt. With that, I give a story that I heard one time. There was a guy, just a guy, and he decided that he saw that a lot of people were getting like the followers and the fame and from being a spiritual person. So he decided, I too am going to be a spiritual person. Self-appointed guru. And he went around giving people mantras that he made up. Completely made up. So he would give people these mantras, and as far as he was concerned, everything was fine. And so one day, a prostitute came to him. And she said, I hear that you're giving out these mantras. Can you also give me one? I want one for spiritual realization. He quickly thought up some nonsense and gave her a mantra. And then she began to chant this mantra with faith and devotion. Complete faith and devotion. Thinking, Okay, my guru has given me this mantra. This must be the way to connect to my spiritual Lord. Then a natural disaster comes, a hurricane comes, and there's flooding. Everyone is looking for shelter. There's none to be found. And this prostitute woman says, okay, I'm going to take shelter of my mantra. And so she continues to take shelter of her mantra, and she prays, and she goes, and she walks along, and she's engaged in chanting this mantra and thinking about this mantra, and she goes and she climbs a tree. And she sits in the tree, and somehow she's okay. The guru who gave her the mantra gets carried away by the current. He's gone. But she's still okay. So what happens to our faith? What happens to our spiritual progress if a guru has some difficulty? If they decide to fall away from their spiritual path? Nothing. Because that bond was not just made with that person. That bond is made with Krishna. Krishna knows how to accept sincere, authentic love and devotion, no matter what language we use. Krishna knows how. So we should not be afraid that, oh, what if I accept this person and then they have a problem? Okay. But did you just accept that person, or did you accept Krishna too? Because Krishna doesn't have to leave. Krishna can protect us always. And that relationship that we've established with Krishna never, ever, ever goes away. Bilvamangala Thakur was able to honor Chintamani, a prostitute, as his guru. He never spoke to her again. But he honored her in his written works, giving all obeisances, because she was able to help him see that he was wasting his time. She said, I've sung innumerable songs about the love of Radha and Krishna. If only you could figure that kind of love out, then it would be worthwhile. It would be worth braving a storm and all of the trials and tribulations you took to get here to see me. Who am I? I can't even be with you all the time. This is a job. But fall in love with Krishna, and that job is never just a job. It is real and lasting and eternal. He never spoke to her again. He didn't get to check up on her and see how she was doing, to see if she decided to become a saint or if she continued to work there till the end of her days. It didn't matter. He was able to see that one moment for what it was. That moment that was needed to turn his life around. And that wasn't the end of his needing to surrender either. He has to go and do the work again and again and again. And it gets rubbed on his heart because, like all of us, we say, got it, I'll surrender in a minute. So what our acharyas tell us is that this path is not just singular to us. It's everybody. All of us. Embodied souls are dealing with these trust issues. Embodied souls are dealing with anxieties. What happens at the end? What happens when all this life is dissolved? Lord Brahma himself says, I'm dealing with the anxiety of it. It should be comforting for us. We're not alone. But the emphasis, we should never forget, like-minded. We have to find those people that go with our vibration. And sometimes the people that we accept as guru, yes, for that moment. That one moment, that person said something, and that was able to help me. And so I can offer my respects to that person because in that moment, they were guru. Well, now they're off doing all kinds of bad things. What do you do about that? I stick to my Krishna consciousness. That has nothing to do with me. There was one moment. I was able to accept what they did in that one moment. That doesn't mean I have to jump on the bandwagon and accept it for the rest of whatever. Everybody's dealing with their own spiritual things. And sometimes one of the best things that we can do, especially when we see these things happen, and they will happen, pray for the person. Because, and my mom always likes to say, there but for the grace of God go I. What is the difference between that person having that crisis and me in my spiritual life? Absolutely nothing but Govinda's grace. There is no difference. So if we can extend some room to pray for the person, what our Shastras tell us is that what we pray for other people comes back toward us tenfold. So I want to pray. I hope that they get better. I hope that their heart is healed by whatever this is that they're going through. I am so sorry that they're going through whatever it is, but I have to stick with my Krishna consciousness.
Thank you so much, Mother Chuta. Yes, thank you so much. I mean, your answer to my question is very uplifting in the sense that I'm beginning to understand that it's not all doom. When some days I have some worries or doubts, they are all part of the process. And actually, as you were giving the answers, I was reminded of my Gurudev Bhaktivedanta Maharaj. He once asked us all a question. He says, assuming you went out on Sankirtan, when you came back, the temple was gone. The deities were gone. No devotees, nobody. And then you heard that your guru is gone. What do you do? So nobody could answer. And then he answered, he said, you just sit down and chant. So it's not just about the individual guru or whoever, but Krishna is also involved. So thank you so much for the answer. Thank you so much. Yes.
I feel like, it's like if we had a friendship with someone and we got introduced by somebody else, and we were such good friends with that person though, and we forged a relationship. But then I get into an argument with the person who introduced us, right? Or say you go on a blind date. You have a friend, they set you up with somebody and you really like that person. You're thinking of marrying that person. They've treated you wonderfully. There's no problem, but you get into a fight with the person who introduced you. And then you say, you know what, the wedding's off. You're like, what did I do? Well, nothing. You did nothing. But I got into a fight with that person who introduced us. And so now everything that they must have introduced me to was wrong. They'd feel so hurt and rejected. Imagine how Krishna must feel. And there's so many times that we do this, we get into a fight with somebody and then we think, God can't be real. Otherwise, why would I have this happen to me? And he's like, I didn't do anything. You had a fight with that person and now you're going to stop talking to me. I was just blessing your entire existence. Krishna is a good friend.
It's crazy, but it does happen. Yeah. Unfortunately.
So I try to remind myself not to take my anger out on Krishna about things that I might be disappointed in with people. And devotees are just people who happen to know about Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Mother Chuta. Anyone else has any question? I'm seeing something from the chat room. Kanika Vashtava. I think it's Mataji. He said, thank you so much, Mataji. Yes, the time falls short. I'm so grateful that I got to hear something from you. Jai, Dandavar Pranam, all glories to Shri Prabhupada, all glories This is, no, something else. I'm sorry. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Krishna, and all glories to you for the amazing session. Okay, so good. And then Lilishwari says, one of the most beautiful and sweetest lectures I've heard. Thank you, dear Chita Gopi, for the wonderful class. May Govinda keep your simple heart always nourished, so that your love and devotion continue to overflow. Hare Krishna. This simplicity is a problem because it's easier said than done. Because sometimes you try to be simple, and just trying to be simple will put you into trouble, because people may feel that, oh, this person is dumb, this person is, and especially working in the corporate world, not amongst the devotees. You try to live a simple life, and people take you for a ride. So it's kind of difficult how to react, because you're trying to be a devotee. You do not want to react and appear like you're not a devotee. And when you try to act as a devotee also, then it's crazy sometimes. Excuse me my language. Yeah, but that's, I believe, part of the reason why it makes it difficult for some of us to be simple, because being simple tells others that, oh, I mean, like, taking myself as an example, there was a time I was so regretful because some people that I knew, they knew me to be like a priest. And because they knew me to be like a priest, they felt that, oh, you can say whatever, you can do whatever, he will be tolerating you. He wouldn't say a word. And it kept going on. So now I had to shake myself a little bit, Okay. So it makes it a bit difficult.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
It can feel so difficult because, like you
Yeah.
said, if you are in a corporate setting, you have to know how to play the game,
Yeah.
right? But then if you're in a devotee setting, then you're supposed to be simple-hearted and open.
Yeah.
What I often find is that, funny enough, devotees are supposed to be the ones who support you. But I also often feel like devotees are the ones who are not happy either way.
Yeah.
If you are in a corporate position and you're able to play that game well, devotees are not happy.
Yeah.
That person must not be sincere.
Yeah.
Then if you're sincere, then devotees are not happy. They say, nope, too much sincerity is a sign of a thief.
Yeah.
That's it.
So,
Right? So with devotees, sometimes I feel like we are the most cynical. And we're supposed to be the most open and appreciative, but we're
Yeah.
so cynical.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of lose that. And so we have a cautionary tale, right? We have Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni was so intelligent. He's a partial expansion of Lord Shiva. And so to him, Maharaj Ambarish was too much. He was too much. He's like, look at this guy. He's a king. He's following all these Akadashis. Like, who does he think he is? Like, I'm actually the Brahmin here. He's just a householder. Right? You ever hear those things? Just a grahasta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just. Maharaj Ambarish was just simply doing what he does. Trying to be Krishna conscious, trying to be an amazing king, which he was. He was wealthy and a beautiful administrator. And now we have also a spiritually minded person. So it looks like it's like devotee conflict with devotees.
Mm-hmm.
And Krishna was firmly on the side of Maharaj Ambarish. He sided firmly with the authentic simplicity, rather than with Durvasa Muni's all of his knowledge, all the things that he thought he knew. So we can see that the result is still the same. The conflicts are going to happen. They're going to keep happening. But what I feel like, and my Guru Maharaj gives us such a great example that I've kept in my heart since I heard it. When we think about that humility and simplicity and the tolerance and all the things, it's like, what does that mean? Like, am I a doormat? Does that mean that anybody can say anything to me and I just tolerate it?
Yeah.
Our example for simplicity in action with humility and tolerance is Hanuman.
Mm.
Hanuman he was tolerant, but
Yeah.
not of just anything.
Yeah.
And he was going to be good at what he did. And he wasn't shy about being the best at what he did. Arjuna was not shy about being the best. So us being spiritually minded people does not mean that we should be shy about being the best. It means that we should be the best in an attitude of service, in an attitude of saying, but if I am an ambassador for my Lord, I am not going to be a raggedy ambassador. That's not what my Lord requires of me. Sometimes it is, right? Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Sanatan Goswami, you have a nice blanket, give it away. So sometimes that's what our Lord requires of us. But unless and until he tells me specifically, taking the Hanuman attitude.
Yes.
Simply ready to serve, but he was also going to be the best.
Hare Krishna. Very well. I like that. I like that. Anyone with any questions? Okay. Well, it's almost 2 hours, so maybe we'll call it a day. But thank you so much, Madam Chita, because you hit on so many important notes that are really applicable in my situation. So I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
I always appreciate how you make this an interactive discussion. I appreciate that so much. Every time I'm always like waiting for it. I'm like, I know it. He's gonna have all the things. It makes it real.
When I was really when I was quite new where Gidanagri, we were once with Gurudev, and we were playing like a game, and then so many things were written and rolled up in a piece of paper and in a basket, and Ekemura Prabhu picked one, and the question was too heavy for him, so I was so naive. I didn't understand the game he was playing with me. So he gave me his paper. I opened it and I read it out. And I had to answer the question. And the question was, when did your guru say or do something that made you think, oh no, this can't be right? And I read it. I was so naive. I shouldn't have accepted the role. I read it and I said, Gurudev, that has never happened to me. And I did not even finish my statement. Gurudev stopped me and says, no, that can't be true. Only pure devotees act that way. And I know myself, I'm not a pure devotee. So I started thinking. I did a lot of retrospective thing, and I remembered something that my Gurudev said some time ago, and I said, no, Gurudev, I don't think this is right. So But later on, I realized that what he said was right. But at the time, I thought he wasn't right. So it is not unusual for struggling devotee to sometimes have doubts about what the Guru says. It's all part of the journey, I believe.
Imagine having such a wonderful Gurudev who will ask that question.
Yeah.
Imagine having such a Gurudev who says, no, think about it.
Yeah.
Take it and think about it, and then think about what you did. Think about how you felt. Think about how it was resolved. Reflect on that. Like
Yeah.
there are so many times you'll never get that. It's like, don't question it. It should always just be. It's part of the Leela.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even everyone in Krishna's Leelas are questioning what's happening in Krishna's Leelas. Krishna says, listen, don't worship Indra, worship Govardhan Hill. They did
Yeah.
it. And then after they were questioning, they said, look, we said that there would be issues. And now there are issues. So now you better fix the issues.
Yeah.
They questioned it. Oh, maybe we shouldn't have listened to this little boy. He's what, 8, 7? What were we thinking?
Yeah.
They're constantly thinking, what were we thinking? Maybe this wasn't a good idea. Krishna does save the day, but so
Yeah.
we should be thinking about it.
Yeah.
We should be wondering, like, okay. And sometimes that's surrender. Oh. And that's why Krishna is asking Arjuna several times. So now are your doubts dispelled? Now are you ready?
Yeah.
Now are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we should be so lucky to have spiritual teachers who
Yeah.
understand
We
the
are.
heart.
Yes, we are. Kanika has a question. Yes, please unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, you can't ask it in the chat. You have to talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yes. We want to hear your voice.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. I'm so sorry for before that my mic got unmuted.
It's okay.
My question is that it is a very simple question, but I want to ask, it's very difficult to follow. How to be humble? Means we know that we need to be humble to be a devotee, and devotees are always like that. But how to be humble? It's very difficult to follow in our life. We need to be more humble than the blade of the grass, but still how?
Mhm.
Yeah. So because this is an interactive discussion now, I'm gonna kind of turn it back on you a little bit. We say that. We say how to be humble. We have to be more humble than a blade of grass. What does that word humble mean to you?
To be tolerant.
What's that mean? Yeah.
To accept things and to accept things as they are, or to accept Krishna's plan.
See? So when we recite these things, we have things that we've heard, and I'm often asking even myself this question, right? I'll say things, and people, the closest friends that I have, know that at some point in our friendship, I'm probably going to say something that's going to like annoy them or get on their nerves. And the thing that I usually say that gets on their nerves is, do you really believe that? Or is this something we're just regurgitating? Like, and I'm also constantly asking myself that question. So, I had a conversation. There was a very famous Bollywood actor who had committed suicide. And I had a conversation with a friend, and they were saying, it's such a shame. If only they knew Krishna. And I said, do you really believe that would have saved them? Or are you just regurgitating? And they said, what? Like, why does everything with you have to be such like a big issue? I'm like, because that's life. I'm going to keep looking. But do you really believe what you just said? Or is that something that we're spewing back out? We're just repeating like parrots. Or do you really feel that? Because I said, interestingly enough, just Janmashtami had just passed. I said, just Janmashtami. They made several posts about Sri Krishna and honoring Krishna on Janmashtami. I was like, so now what? Where's your theory of if they just knew Krishna? So sometimes we say things, we repeat the lines of prayers, but they don't connect. And as long as they don't connect, it's all here, you know? So that's why I said, what does this humility mean to you? Because very few of us have a definition of humility at all. Like we might have a dictionary definition, but what does that mean spiritually for us? My Guru Maharaj gave a definition of humility that I really liked. He said, humility is pride in the greatness of God. Because for me, it's really difficult for me not to be proud of things. So now the goal is not just stripping yourself of something that comes natural to you. It's putting it in the proper place. Now my Krishna is not saying, don't be proud, don't have no emotions, think of nothing. Krishna never says that. What he does now say is, but pride in the greatness of God, that I can do. And every single moment, that greatness of God is going to show itself in whatever ways. So many different ways. Sometimes pride in the greatness of God says, but you know what? Govinda gave me a talent that I can write. Am I proud of it? Yes. And it should be something that we tell ourselves about the things that we're good at. Because we are yearning to hear that from somebody else, aren't we? Truthfully, really in our hearts, we're yearning for somebody to say, you did such a good job with that. We should be the first ones to tell ourselves. If it makes you feel better, you can say, Govinda says, you did such a good job with that. You did such a good job. Why? Because Krishna says, I am the ability in man, humans. So if he gave me this ability, if this ability is his mercy and his potency and his energy, how dare I say it means nothing? Yikes. Better I have pride in it. This is Krishna's mercy, so I should use it to the full extent. And I should be real good at it. Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj was such a great scientist and thinker. His humility was to build an institute. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was such a magnificent thinker, able to connect with people. His humility was to build an institute. His humility was to build an entire place where people were able to come for applied spiritual technology. And you know, all of us were like, whoa, that sounds fancy. It was just another way he was able to say spiritual consciousness. But he was able to say it in a way that people were able to relate to. His humility was to build big. So our humility kind of connects to where we place it, right? Pride in the greatness of God. I was admiring a sunset and somebody wrote to me and they were saying, you're like, you know, why are you admiring this when everything in this material world is completely temporary and the spiritual world is so much better? And I was like, wow, you sound really agitated. Like, I mean, why not? If my Krishna said he is the light of the sun and the moon and the heat of fire, what business do I have of saying, oh, none of that means nothing? Like, the spiritual world is so much better. What makes me think that that attitude will get me there? That humility is seeing the greatness of Govinda's mercy in so many different places. And seeing, where's Govinda's mercy here? And how can I be of service? And so we have the example of Hanuman, right? Simple, humble, tolerant. You don't normally ascribe those things to Hanuman. Usually those qualities are kept for the all of the personalities within Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? Especially, like, the more meek and quiet we see them, the more we give them the humility badge. But that wasn't actually true. These personalities were doing amazing things, having incredible debates with other people. which is the equivalent for us of like defending a dissertation. And they would have them often. They were great thinkers. They did not abandon that. So I think that, you know, we should be careful in thinking that humility means that we abandon all of our talents and, most importantly, our common sense. Don't abandon that. Don't abandon your talents, and don't abandon your common sense either. I knew very many friends who were famous in the outside world, but when they became devotees, the devotees told them, oh, that's Maya. You should give all that up. I'm like, maybe no, you should not. How many examples of kings do we have before we actually understand that Krishna's mercy is not simply relegated to one person who sits in one little bhajan kutir and doesn't interact with anybody and just maybe chants the whole day? We don't know because nobody's ever there to see it. And, you know, not saying that that's the basis of our spirituality, but if that can be the most spiritual aspiration, then why not the same person who can rule like Maharaj Ambarish, but is also a good devotee? That can be the example of humility. And we have to be careful on the opposite side. You know, we kind of groom people with this idea of humility. And sometimes this idea of humility means I get to use you for whatever I think it is best at any given moment. That means I get to use you and your service and whatever you are. And then when you're of no use to me anymore, I don't think about you anymore, because we're all souls and you shouldn't be on the bodily concept anyway. And any and all relations are to be abandoned at the time of renunciation. Right? So, you know, we think about that with devotees. We don't give them the proper acknowledgement. But if one famous person holds a book by Srila Prabhupada, oh, they are amazing. They are self-realized. Look at what's happened. And I'm like, what difference does that make to your life? If, I'll give you an example. Lots of people started kind of like, Will Smith read a Bhagavad-Gita years ago, and people still to this day, they're like, but he read it. I'm like, okay, but did you read it? Like, what difference does that make to our lives? He can read it. He's still over there. He doesn't know us. May never know us. But what difference does that make? It took that to inspire you to read Bhagavad-Gita more? Rather than the person who's been giving the lecture to 2 people every week, and they've been consistent with trying to just speak about Bhagavad-Gita in the most caring, compassionate way. But because that person already has followers, they mean more? So I feel like, you know, we have to be really careful with that humility that we toss around. So for me, humility means authenticity, sincerity, that simplistic heart without duplicity. Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he's so firm about that duplicity. Not having that duplicity makes us dear to Mahaprabhu. Having even a little bit of that duplicity, they give the example, Junior Haridas. One of the most graphic examples, I think, in Vedic literature. Junior Haridas, not to be confused with Bada Haridas, who is Haridas Thakur, the Namacharya, right? So not to be confused, there was another Haridas, younger. And he was a brahmachari, living as a brahmachari. And it says that, and for a while, this story confused me and hurt my heart. I had to do a lot to figure it out. It says that he kind of, there was a woman and he thought about her in passing. And then because of that, it says Mahaprabhu he wanted nothing to do with him ever again. So much so that Junior Haridas gets so depressed and so despondent that he tries to go and see Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu refuses. And then Junior Haridas goes and commits suicide. The devotees hear about this for some time. The devotees tried to even change Mahaprabhu's mind, and nope. And finally, Mahaprabhu one day says, where's Junior Haridas, Chota Haridas? And they say, Mahaprabhu, he jumped into the Ganga, he ended his life. The same Mahaprabhu who told Sanatan Goswami that committing suicide would be thievery, criminal activity, because now you are trying to take something which is not yours. Your life belongs to me. That same Mahaprabhu said, good. I was appalled. This seems to go against everything that they taught me. And I was always thinking, I was like, but my Mahaprabhu is so, his heart is so compassionate, so soft. What happened? And for a long time, it was just kind of like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. When I finally started saying, but my Mahaprabhu is so soft, there has to be something more there. What happened? When my mood changed, the answer came. The answer was not simply that Chota Haridas had thought about a woman. It was that he was unwilling to acknowledge that this was happening. Right? In his mind, he could play it off and everything would be fine. Externally, he was still trying to make sure everything was the same, but internally, his intentions had shifted. And he refused to be authentic about the fact that they had shifted. So that inauthenticity, that lacking, that unwillingness to be sincere, upset Mahaprabhu to the point where now he was so annoyed that when he hears that he ended good, because now at least he's being authentic. So this is what this getting rid of this duplicity really means. It's not that, because we see so many times, it's like Mahaprabhu forgave Jagai Madai. They were doing worse than just thinking about a woman. But they owned up to it. They were authentic and sincere. That's the simplicity. That's the humility that Mahaprabhu is looking for. Not that we shouldn't make mistakes, because of course we will. And Mahaprabhu is unlimitedly merciful and ready to forgive an unlimited amount of times. But if we're not authentic, if we are not sincere, Mahaprabhu does not want to be bothered. So this is what humility means for me. It's acknowledging that authenticity, that sincerity, understanding, of course I'm going to make mistakes, but I'll own up to them. This was a mistake. I hope to do differently in the future, but I don't know. My Lord, you tell me what you think. Some of the greatest examples within Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat come from people who say, my Lord, I made a mistake. I caused offenses. I did a bad thing. But now you tell me what to do. And Mahaprabhu then takes them and makes them the greatest example of Krishna's mercy. I hope that answered the question. How do we become more humble? Just try and be authentic.
Kanika Vastava Devi, thank you so much for that question, because you've actually churned the ocean of nectar. And the nectar is now in front of us. And I'm sure all of us have enjoyed drinking this nectar, up to the point that even when our head is chopped off, we're still going to live. Because if you already drank it. But Chida Govi, I mean, the entire class is so beautiful. But this last question and the answer you gave about duplicity and authenticity, I think it's so important that I'm sure we're all going to benefit from it. And whoever watches this video later on is surely going to benefit from it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So at this point,
I feel like that was one of the benedictions. Like, you know, when they get after a long story, they're like, whoever hears this story, faith and devotion, feel like Prabhu has now given everybody a benediction.
I wish I could. if I have that power, I give everybody the benediction to become Krishna Bhakta and Bhakti. Hare Krishna, but it's so beautiful, so beautiful. Thank you so much. So at this point, we ask all the devotees to unmute, and then we thank you all for your patience and your tolerance. I wouldn't say tolerance because I believe you were all enjoying it. Otherwise, you would be gone. So the word of Krishna is food. It's pressured. So we all enjoyed it. So please unmute and then let us all chant Hare Krishna. Jai. Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna.
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama.
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Rama.
Ram,
Rama
Rama
Rama.
Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai. All glories to her grace. Achita Gopi Devi ki Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
All glories to your service.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Shri Salika Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. So I'll see you tomorrow.